The atmosphere was tense in Brussels. European leaders gathered for an emergency summit. The reason? Russia's ongoing aggression and the urgent need to bolster Europe's defenses. The message was clear: Europe would not stand idly by. It would act decisively to protect its borders and its values. This summit was different. The mood was somber, the stakes higher than ever before. The war in Ukraine had shaken Europe to its core. It exposed the continent's vulnerability and the need for a united front. The summit aimed to address these challenges head-on. Increased defense spending was top of the agenda. So was the revival of the ambitious Sky Shield plan to protect Ukrainian skies. The EU was sending a clear message to Moscow: aggression would be met with strength and resolve. The EU made a historic decision in Brussels. It pledged to dramatically increase its defense spending. The goal? To counter the growing Russian threat and prepare for a future where Europe's security could no longer depend on others. 800 billion euros. That's the staggering sum the European Commission, led by Ursula von der Leyen, proposed. This ambitious plan aims to strengthen Europe's defense capabilities over the next decade. It's a clear sign that the EU is finally getting serious about its own security. This money will be used to modernize Europe's armed forces. New weapons systems will be purchased, including drones and advanced anti-aircraft systems. The production of vital munitions will be ramped up. The message to Putin is unmistakable. Europe will not be intimidated. It will stand firm against aggression and defend its interests. The era of relying on others for security is over. Europe is taking charge of its own destiny. The war in Ukraine has highlighted a brutal reality: the devastating impact of air power. Russia has used its air superiority to deadly effect, targeting civilian infrastructure and terrorizing the population. The EU's response? The revival of the Sky Shield plan. First proposed in 2022, this ambitious project aims to create a protective umbrella over Ukraine. Using 120 European fighter jets, Sky Shield would intercept Russian aircraft and prevent further attacks. This is not about entering the war directly. The plan focuses on protecting key Ukrainian cities and infrastructure, particularly nuclear power plants. It avoids direct engagement with Russian forces on the front lines. Sky Shield is a complex undertaking. It requires significant coordination and cooperation between EU member states. But if successful, it could be a game changer, providing Ukraine with much-needed breathing room and saving countless lives. Section 4, a house divided, Hungary's stance and the EU's internal struggle. The EU presented a united front in Brussels, but behind the scenes divisions remain. Hungary, led by the controversial Viktor Orban, has been a vocal critic of the EU's approach to the war in Ukraine. Orban has refused to condemn Russia's aggression and blocked attempts to provide aid to Ukraine. He views the war as a regional conflict and opposes any EU sanctions that could harm Hungary's economy. This stance has created tensions within the EU. Many member states see Orban's position as pro-Russian and detrimental to European unity. They argue that appeasing Putin will only embolden him further. Despite these divisions, the EU remains committed to supporting Ukraine. The majority of member states recognize the need for a strong and united response to Russian aggression. The question is, can the EU bridge these internal divides and present a truly united front? Section 5, aiding Ukraine, a lifeline of support and a push for peace. Beyond bolstering its own defenses, the EU made another crucial pledge in Brussels' unwavering support for Ukraine. A new aid package worth 30 billion euros was approved for 2025. This money will provide essential humanitarian assistance to the war-torn country. But the EU's commitment goes beyond immediate aid. It is also using its diplomatic weight to push for a peaceful resolution to the conflict. The EU insists that any peace deal must respect Ukraine's territorial integrity and guarantee its long-term security. The EU has also imposed harsh sanctions on Russia. These sanctions target key sectors of the Russian economy, aiming to pressure Putin to change course. While the effectiveness of these sanctions is still debated, they send a clear message that Russia's actions will not go unpunished. The EU's message is clear: Ukraine is not alone. Europe will stand by its side, providing both practical support and working tirelessly for a just and lasting peace. Section 6, a new era for European defense, stepping out of America's shadow. The war in Ukraine was a wake-up call for Europe. For decades, it had relied on the United States for its security. The NATO alliance provided a protective umbrella, allowing Europe to focus on economic growth and integration. But the world has changed. The US is shifting its focus to other regions, particularly the Asia-Pacific. And Russia's aggression has shown that Europe can no longer take its security for granted. The emergency summit in Brussels marks a turning point. The EU's decision to significantly increase defense spending is a clear sign that it is ready to take on a greater role in its own defense. It's a recognition that Europe can no longer rely solely on the US for its security. This is not about abandoning NATO. The transatlantic alliance remains a cornerstone of European security, but it is about Europe taking on more responsibility, developing its own defense capabilities, and becoming a more capable and reliable partner. Section 7. The future of Europe. Unity and resolve in the face of threat. The emergency summit in Brussels was about more than just defense spending or military hardware. It was about the future of Europe. It was about defending the values of democracy, freedom, and the rule of law that underpin the European project. The war in Ukraine has tested Europe's unity. It has exposed internal divisions and raised difficult questions about the continent's strategic autonomy. But it has also shown the strength of Europe's resolve. The EU's response has been swift and decisive. It has provided significant financial and military support to Ukraine. It has imposed unprecedented sanctions on Russia, and it has committed to bolstering its own defenses. The road ahead will be challenging. The war in Ukraine is far from over, and the threat from Russia is likely to persist for years to come. But the EU has shown that it is ready to face these challenges head-on. The future of Europe depends on its ability to remain united and resolute in the face of adversity. The summit in Brussels was a powerful demonstration of that unity and resolve. It was a message to the world that Europe will not be intimidated. It will stand firm in defense of its values and its interests.